My name is Dan Rubenstein. I'm a professor of ecology and evolutionary biology. I'm actually a behavioral ecologist, and I'm from Princeton University. And my research is on large animals, in particular wildlife, and the wildlife I study are often considered vermin by most of the people in the world. And that's what's brought me into working with people on living landscapes where people with livestock interact with wildlife. Over the last few days, we've had two conferences and workshops. One was on Call of the Wild, what is the wild, and how do we understand it, and how do we relate and connect people to it. And then today we're talking about connecting to the crowd, bringing citizen scientists to work together with professional scientists to make a better planet. It's really hard to tell what we mean by wild. You know, if you live in a city and you've got trees and parks, that looks wild compared to the asphalt jungle that surrounds them. If you live in the countryside, then is your agricultural landscape wild, or is it the fields and the wildflowers and the forests that constitute the wild? And if you live in a place like Africa, is the wild a national park where you exclude the livestock and the people, and it looks pristine, but in fact the vegetation dynamics are going to be such that it's not going to support as much wildlife because in fact they've co-evolved with the cattle. So the concept of wild is relative, and on a living landscape then, how do you maintain it in balance? The concept of the wild and the concept of crowdsourcing are perfect partners. Once we understand that there are many wilds, people have to understand why the concept of wild is sort of like a shifting balance. And they can plug in to any of the wilds that they want. They can go on safari to Africa, but they're not necessarily going to want to be in the national parks, which are isolated, these islands. They play a very valuable role because they're going to be the largest areas where the populations can remain stable. But sometimes they have to be managed because the livestock are not there. On the other hand, the living landscape, 50% of Kenya's people live on the land, and that land is semi-arid or arid. And so these environments with cattle, sheep, goats, and now camels is a dominant landscape, and understanding how wildlife can survive there, people should see. And then they can go back and see in the United States or in Britain how the mammals on that landscape share with the livestock or the other agricultural practices on that landscape. So what you learn about the dynamics and the interactions in one place become the lessons learned that give you insights in how other places function. And that might change your behavior, it might get you involved, and it might lead to changes in policy. I think citizen science is going to change over time, and it's going to be this tension between getting people in the field and getting their fingernails dirty as they actually gather data. Very few people really go out and experience the environment. They might go for a walk, but they may not actually take measurements and take stock on the diversity, the change over time. I do think in the future that there'll be this greater integration between the academic world and the people world. I think people want the planet to be better, and I think people are willing to give some of their time to do it, but to keep them engaged, to keep them interested, we have to provide a diversity of projects so they can switch and find out what tasks they're best at doing. They're going to want to know why they're doing it, and therefore it's going to take time on the behalf of the scientist or the historian or the writer to share ideas with people, to keep them motivated. Because if people understand why they're doing something and they can contribute their own insights to help do it better, they're going to be more empowered and more engaged. And as they learn and they grow, they become better decision makers. They're going to vote in different ways, and they may even become activists and tell Congress in the United States or Parliament in Britain to change their behavior, to come up with better policies. And again, because they take ownership of what they're doing, they're going to be passionate about communicating that, and passionate people often get things done.